Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at the Races. Great place to go and get racing information, especially this week with all the special coverage for Royal Ascot. Go to attheraces.com to find out a lot more. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players Podcast. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, back with you in the Brooklyn bunker once again, physically in the bunker. The brain, it's over in England. I'm thinking about Ascot. What a week we've got. We're going to be covering it all for you right here on the network. It kicks off with this show. This is our show for Monday, June 14th. We've got 3 guests to talk Ascot with you throughout the course of this show, and you're going to want to pay attention to all of them. Great place to start in your analysis for Ascot. And without further ado, let's get to the first one. First up on the show, we have a man who's not dressed as he will be the rest of this week. I think that's safe to say. You know him from the amazing job he does on his daily podcast and broadcasting at the likes of NBC, where you'll see him this week for Royal Ascot. Nick Luck, how are things?
I'm very well, Peter. How are you?
Excellent. Really looking forward to deeply diving into all these races. We're going to have daily shows on the network previewing, but I wanted to bring you on, Nick, to set the stage and give us a few ideas of races that we're going to want to be paying attention and maybe a horse or two to bet. Let's start off, though, with where folks can watch the Ascot coverage here in the United States.
Well, you can watch on NBC Sports Network all week. They'll be carrying the coverage from Sky Sports Racing. And then I'll be hosting the network show on NBC on Saturday, 9 Eastern. And that takes in all the racing right the way through until the final race on the main NBC channel with a mixture of my input and some of our own interviews and the coverage from ITV, who are the network host broadcaster here. I'll also be helping out Scott Hazelton and Jess Stafford with the TVG coverage this week, which will obviously be dovetailing in with what normal output you would get on TVG at that time of day, wherever you happen to be in the country. And that, of course, begins tomorrow as well. So you are spoilt for choice wherever you are in the world, particularly in the US, for coverage of Royal Ascot this week.
Great stuff. I want to ask you about the general mood. Obviously, the UK at a little bit of a different stage than we are here in the USA in terms of pandemic recovery stuff. What's the mood like approaching this meet?
Cautiously positive. I mean, the nation has taken a little bit of a setback today in terms of lifting of COVID-19 enforced restrictions. This next week, so the Monday, the 21st, was supposed to be the final lift so that everybody was, to all intents and purposes, free to get on with their lives as normal. We're in the 3rd stage of 4 at the moment, so you can still go about your business pretty well. But obviously, given large crowds and major sporting or leisure fixtures, that has a significant impact. So if that lift of restriction had come in last week, for example, then Ascot would be able to be borderline capacity. As things stand, it can have 12,000 people a day with some testing as well. So it's not brilliant, but it's certainly not the worst. It'll certainly be more atmospheric than last year. And I think the caliber of the sport and the good weather forecast is sort of keeping everybody's spirits up.
Let's pivot to the sport in terms of races that are going to get the most attention, have the most significance on the international scene this week. What leaps to mind?
Well, the first day is always a great day at Royal Ascot. It always starts with a terrific bang. The Queen Anne Stakes features the horse that Thoroughbred Racing Commentary rate is the best in the world at the moment, Palace Pier. And on that basis and what he's done for the balance of his career, he should be devastatingly hard to beat. But against him, you've got the returning Breeders' Cup Mile hero, Order of Australia, and the third in that race, Lope Fernandez, who form a really interesting pincer movement on Palace Pier. There's no pace in the race. I think Ryan Moore's chosen right with Order of Australia. He's the horse who could yet offer a bit more. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if he tries to make all the running, especially in the blinkers. And Frankie will have to run him down. And that's one of the motifs of the week again, Dettori against Ryan Moore. They're both loaded with good rides, and I can see that coming right down to the Saturday. But as we saw last year with Jim Crowley with 6 winners, there can always be a surprise package at Ascot.
I would agree with that notion that Tuesday at Ascot is something particularly special, true international day. Curious to know what other highlights you're looking forward to.
What, for the rest of the week?
Well, starting on Tuesday or pivoting to the rest of the week. You guide us through.
There's so many, Pete. You've got the first of the Wesleys on Tuesday, and it's more interesting than normal as well because Coffee Maker seems to have taken so much attention. Yet she's a filly against the Colts in a race that no filly's won for over 100 years, albeit not that many good ones have tried. Why would you? Because there's so many other options. And second, it's habitually one of the better 2-year-old races. So that'll lay down a real marker. If she can win, then his other horses through the week, the likes of Lucci in the Norfolk Stakes and his Twilight Gleaming and Ruthin, they're going to be so heavily bet in their races. Weather's a big factor with him as well. If it doesn't rain, you know that his horses are going to have a bigger chance. And having initially thought that there weren't all that many good 2-year-olds in England, now you look at the full fields, you start to change your mind. I like a horse of John Gosden's in the Coventry called Dabab. Other big highlights on day one, the King's Stand. Can Batash win off his injury enforced absence? He had a sesamoid fracture, but apparently he's fine. He looked great when I saw him the other day. The only difference with that race to normal is that there's even more contested, raw, brazen pace than there normally would be. I've counted 9, not just front runners, but just one-dimensional speedsters. And it's a stiff track at Ascot. I think that brings in Brendan Walsh's horse, to be honest, that is now going to be ridden by Frankie Dettori. I think Extravagant Kid. I think he's suddenly got a chance given the way the race is shaken down.
That would be some story to get another American trained winner at Ascot. From the perspective over there, Wesley Ward, obviously in the United States, synonymous with the meeting. How would you describe the typical English and Irish fans' reaction to the success Ward has had over the years?
I think, bar a few skeptics, people who are always a little bit hesitant to heap praise on international raiders because they don't trust them for whatever reason. I think broadly speaking, the reaction's been incredibly positive. I think Wesley Ward has brought another dimension to Royal Ascot over the last decade and a half. He has, I think, entranced and enchanted people. The first few horses that he brought over were doing something that other horses just didn't do. They just blitzed and ran, which is a very un-European style of doing things. And they were burning others into the ground, burning them off at halfway. That advantage has become less marked as time's gone on. But he's been incredibly engaging and open with the media, which always puts you at a massive advantage here as well. And gradually, as his ownership base has increased, he's got a better quality of bloodstock. And you're sort of starting to look at him as a slightly different type of trainer. And we saw that when he won older horse races with Undrafted and then with Conte Partiro. And I know he likes the two he brings this year, Campanelli and Maven. So I think he's been a fantastic addition to Royal Ascot, and were it not for him, we'd never have had Tepin. We wouldn't have Rusty Arnold this year.
Has he changed the way 2-year-olds are campaigned going into Ascot? Is that part of the dissolution of his advantage over this 12-year span, or however long it's been now?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure is the honest answer. I wonder whether he himself brings a slightly different type of 2-year-old now. So he brings a more European style 2-year-old. I think he was trying to get an edge with horses that were atypical of those that would normally race here. So horses that just almost had that, what he would call quarter horse speed before, and he was training them on the dirt to prep. Whereas I think now he's probably got a slightly more conventional, more, European-y, Chad Brownie type turf horse that he's bringing to these races. So perhaps that's why the contrast isn't quite as great. I'm not sure that he's had any meaningful impact on the way that European horses condition their 2-year-olds.
That's interesting. I want to talk about some other highlights through the week. What's another day that stands out to you that's going to be a must-watch? I know we have people watching. We're curious about Ascot, but haven't fully bought in yet. What's another day they should set aside?
Every day, but Thursday's going to be a fantastic day because you could see history made as Stradivarius looks to equal Yates's record of 4 consecutive victories in the Gold Cup, which at 2.5 miles is one of the, but not amazingly, the longest race of the week, but is certainly the most historic and still confers on its victor the most prestige. And for my money, Stradivarius, I agree with Matt Chapman on this. I think Stradivarius is a better horse than Yates was. I think he deserves to equal the record. He's brilliant at Ascot. He's got an amazing turn of foot for a horse who stays 2.5 miles so well. He's not all that big. He's quite atypical of a staying horse. He's quite a smaller, slightly buttier horse than your normal big, rangy, long striding stayer. And that little short straight at Ascot suits him perfectly because he's got a killer turn of speed. So I think he and Frankie Dettori should get the job done. It'll probably be their toughest test yet because he's getting older. He's still a full horse. He's still entire. And against him, he's got a horse called Subjectivist, who you'll remember winning the Gold Cup in Dubai, who can probably run faster, harder internal fractions over a distance than most other horses that Stradivarius has faced.
Really looking forward to watching you on Saturday on the NBC coverage. What can we look forward to from a racing point of view on Saturday?
Well, fantastic racing again on Saturday. You've got the week's signature sprint race, the Diamond Jubilee Stakes, and Starman looks as though he's the new sprinting sensation here for trainer Ed Walker, who could yet have a very good week because he also has an outstanding chance in the Coronation Stakes on Friday with a filly called Primo Bacio, who for me was one of the most impressive winners of the whole season when she won the Sir Michael Seeley Memorial Stakes at York. So I think Primo Bacio and Starman are two horses trained by Ed Walker that we need to keep a very close eye on later in the week.
Just from a purely betting point of view, not necessarily a sporting point of view now, a couple of races and or horses you're looking forward to seeing compete and that our viewers / listeners might want to be getting down on?
Well, the Prince of Wales Stakes on Wednesday is a terrific race. And the addition of Love to this race increases the interest massively. She was a brilliant 3-year-old filly last year. We've not seen her for quite some time. However, they kept delaying the start to the season. Now, the inference you draw is they've got to be happy with her to be debuting her at Royal Ascot. But Aidan O'Brien runs another horse in the race that Shamie Heffernan's riding called Armory, who had some top-class form around the world the back end of last year. I thought he looked very good at Chester on his comeback. He's a biggish price because of the presence of Love and Lord North. And I think he's a bet at the current odds, Armory in the Prince of Wales is. And I'll give you one for tomorrow, Tuesday, Pete, as well, which is Sleeping Lion in the final race. It's a relatively new race, this Copper Horse handicap, 14 furlongs. Here's a horse who changed stables in the closed season. He looked a sharper, faster model to me when he re-emerged on his first start for Roger Charlton. He's run 3 absolute screamers here at Ascot for his old stable. He wouldn't need to improve on them much to be placed at least. But I thought he looked a better animal. He's now 14-1 in a place. That looks massive to me. Sleeping Lion. Fast ground, strong pace, 14 furlongs. Yard just starting to run into a little bit of form again. Yeah, that's a huge price.
I love it. Good stuff, Nick. We look forward to watching your coverage all week on TVG, on NBC, and of course, following along with the Nick Luck Daily Show. You going to be doing pods, or are you going to be getting a substitute for yourself this week?
Nick Luck Day, of course, I'll be doing pods. Yeah, I'll be doing podcasts every day this week from Ascot as well, Tuesday through Friday. I might give myself a break on Saturday.
Look for him right here on the In the Money Media Network. And Nick Luck, have a fantastic Ascot week, and we'll catch up with you again very soon.
Peter, thanks so much.
Today's show also brought to you in part by In the Money Media. We've got a new survey coming out. You want to help us out, please fill out our survey now. We're going to pick one lucky winner for a $500 free bet this summer. If you go to my Twitter, @LoomsBoldly, I'm going to pin the survey to the tweet. That might be the easiest way to find it. We'll also be sending it around from the In the Money Media handle. Would really appreciate your help and attention to this. Really helps us to keep bringing great horse racing content to you. Check it out, the new In the Money Media survey. Next up on the show, very happy to have the director of new media from attheraces.com and a man I'm proud to call a friend, Matthew Taylor. Matthew, how are things?
Yeah, very good, Peter. It was 68 degrees here yesterday. So for us Brits, that's enough to send us all off to the beach. And rather than studying the form, I was building sandcastles 24 hours ago. But it's got even hotter today. It's bordering on 82, something like that. So it's looking warm. So yeah, it's going to be the first 2 days at least. Fingers crossed, going to be nice for Royal Ascot.
I appreciate you doing the Fahrenheit conversion to keep viewers and listeners from scratching their heads. I know this is a meeting you look forward to all year long. We talked a little bit about the general atmosphere surrounding it with Nick Luck earlier in the show. But for you, what does this Ascot meeting mean to you in 2021?
Well, like every year, I mean, it's 5 incredible days of racing, and every race at Ascot is, is hotly contested. These are the best horses in Britain and Ireland. Every race has got, or lots of them have got great history as well. I think in 2021 we're in that kind of strange transition stage, aren't we, between empty grandstands and full capacity. I'm very fortunate. I'm going to be one of about 12,000 there on the first 2 days, and I'm really keen to go back. It's at Cheltenham 2020 was the last time I was at the races, and it's felt such a long time, and now it's kind of dawning on me that I'm going again tomorrow. I've got to remember to get myself organised and get on my form sheets and take those with me.
Well, I have you here. You have a great opinion, but you're here to talk more about data that's out there for USA players and also wagering options. We had some questions come in to that effect. I'd love to talk about what's available at atheraces.com in terms of tools that will allow players to come up with some of their own picks. We're going to be giving out plenty of tips, but I know a lot of people who want to do the digging for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we hold our hands up in the UK in that, sectional timing is in place at Ascot, and we're gradually getting them to all our tracks at the moment. But, trying to find somewhere where everything is located is difficult, especially for overseas players. At ATR, we try and produce guides that help you to get a kind of broader picture of the race. So, particularly relevant at Ascot would be 2 factors, which are draw, where the horse is drawn, which stall they're coming out of in each race, and the likely pace. And they're the two for me, they're the 2 critical factors that I start off with, looking at any race, particularly those at a meeting like Royal Ascot, where, everything is so competitive. So, you can go to our website, our race cards, and you'll see an array of little tabs across the top. And if you go to for example, the pace tab, that's the Queen Anne that you're looking at here tomorrow. If you were to scroll down and go to the tab that's labeled pace, you'll get a chart that shows you this is how we expect the pace in the race to be projected. And as you can see on that graph there, there's 3 horses that are 3/4 of the way across the bar, but there isn't a clear out and out very strong pace runner in the race. So we flagged that as even. For an ordinary race, this would definitely be an even pace. By Royal Ascot standards, this is probably going to be quite a soft pace, is what we're projecting. So yeah, we have that for every race. If you click the neighbouring draw tab on the left-hand side, you can get an impression of how the stalls work. Now, one thing for American players is that our horses are ordered by race card number. So in order to order them by gate number, Peter, if you were to click the little draw link at the top of that column, this is good because we've not practiced at all, have we? This is really good. So there you can see that, based on the data that we have so far in races of this field size, generally being drawn middle to high might be a small advantage. There's nothing too pronounced there, but they're the kind of tools that you can look at our site and you can use to get you a start. I think we'll talk about the draw at some point, and no doubt other guests have as well. But I think that when the ground is good to firm, the draw is not as significant as it is when it's softer. So I would personally use the pace chart to tell me in some of the straight course races, where is the pace likely to be in each race. But then very much, if the ground were to change, I'd be starting to use that draw chart as well.
Now, USA players also have the ability to look at daily racing form PPs, which exist for Ascot. There are also PPs from Timeform US that you can go to and check out. So there's really a plethora of options, but I'm so glad you highlighted those 2 tabs on the At the Races website, just because that's information you're not going to find in either of those other 2 spots. At some point, we should do a deeper dive for USA players, because I think if you're looking at English and Irish racing all the time, more analysis of the PPs themselves would prove helpful. Just going back to the draw analysis once again, just very quick and dirty what these red and green lines mean, Matthew.
So they're just an indication of how races over that course and distance, how those stalls have performed against what we would expect. So the bigger, the bolder the line, the red is that it's underperformed, and the green line is it's overperformed, just against against basic expectations. Obviously there are instances where you might get a horse that breaks and crosses the track and races on a different part of the track, but generally that's how those races have panned out, and that's married to that quantity of runners. So obviously in big field races you might get a different effect.
And so I mean, if it's completely neutral, the closest one to completely neutral here, the 5 and the 8, basically, I mean, that's like completely negligible. And obviously there's some randomness baked in here. But as you pointed out, it is interesting that the first 4 are all in the red, if only a little. And then as you go to the outside with this outlier of the 9 post, it's just interesting and something that the statistically oriented folks are going to be drawn to, and just another way of looking at the world. You get the time form comments in here. That's super interesting. And of course, having the colors right there in your race card, super duper interesting and helpful, because folks looking for colored saddle towels, they're going to be a little bit disappointed this week.
Yeah, that's right. And as you say, with the outliers, it wouldn't give me a sleepless night if I was drawn on or backing a horse that was drawn in a one outlier with everything else around it a sea of green. Then it's more just to give you a holistic picture of how the previous races have panned out.
Definitely something worth taking a look at. Let's chat about wagering specifically. We had some questions come in about what the betting options are going to be this week. Can you give us an overview of what folks can expect, and also maybe a little bit of a view about the liquidity that might be on offer?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this week, Royal Ascot is part of the World Pool, which enables punters from all over the world to bet into a kind of commingled pool, which means there's more liquidity than you would traditionally see. Last year there was 137 million pounds. So what's that? About $200 million roughly. Bet into the World Pool over the 5 days. That was a 50% increase on the previous year. So that's getting into, it's not quite Breeders' Cup territory, but it's getting into it's very healthy pools, very big size, and if essentially what it means to the punter is it means that if you're having a reasonably sized bet, you're not betting against yourself. If you're having, you're not getting the same return in total for your $20 as you would have got for your 10. So it just means that there's more rigidity in the pools, I'd say. In terms of bet types, there's obviously the win and the place pools. There's also quinella pools, trifecta, a bet called the swinger. That you can do, and I've always I'm a big fan of pools betting. I do fixed odds as well, but I think Royal Ascot is a meeting that really it exemplifies the benefits of pool betting, because it gives you opportunities to play races that in a different mindset to how we might traditionally approach a regular card.
Let's talk about some of the things that we're not familiar with. So the place betting in the World Pool, I assume that's like typical place betting around the world, as opposed to the 1-2 finish in every race that we see here in the USA.
Yeah, that's correct. So you can traditionally over here with fixed odds bets, we would do if you want to bet, if you fancy a horse to be placed in a race, you would have to do a bet to win. But this means, place only betting obviously means you don't have to do a stake at all to win, or you can maybe. I quite fancy a horse called Lord Glitters in the Queen Anne Stakes tomorrow to run into a place. I can maybe do most of my bets, 75% or more, on the place element, and just a smaller bet in the just in case bracket, in case he does happen to pop up at a big price. I don't have to divide my stake equally, which is the big advantage.
That place betting, the equivalent of show betting in the USA, and
That's
you do.
Correct.
There's a lot of sharper players will talk you off place betting in the USA pools. Do you feel like for a meet like Ascot with its liquidity and big fields, no reason to shy away from the place bet?
Well, it depends. I think it depends a lot about what your actual approach to betting is. I mean, I tend to not. I will do place bets, but I don't tend to do place only bets because I tend to try and find horses that I think at least have a small chance of winning. And so I'll always try and cover myself. But as I said, it means I don't have to do that equal amount on the two. But it's really, to be honest with you, it's the exactas and the trifectas that as a punter that really interests me at Royal Ascot. Especially around the big field handicaps.
Talk about how you deploy those tools. I've seen it in action, and it's you've gotten me out at days at Ascot with the exacta in the last. Typically, if I'm right about this, typically when you find a favorite or maybe even two runners at the top of the market to oppose, but I'll let you speak for yourself about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge at Royal Ascot is we have some of these big field races with 20 or even 30 runners, and it's very hard to whittle it down just to one horse that you like. And equally, I don't particularly like betting against myself, where I'm thinking, well, I've backed two or three, but for every winner I'm going to back two losers. So I think the appeal of looking at doing a combination bet or a boxed bet, as you would call it, it gives you that opportunity to cover your more horses and potentially still have a situation where you're cheering on two or three in the last furlong. My favourite bet in a big field handicap is always a 5-horse combination Quinella or Exacta, picking 5 horses out. That works out a 10 bets in the Quinella pool or 20 in an Exacta pool. And that for me, in a 30 runner handicap, it gives me a sixth of the field. And I try to obviously if you pick the 5 horses at the top of the market, then you're going to look if you hit the money, then it's going to be more like a double figure payout than a treble or 4-figure payout. But it gives you that opportunity to either chuck a couple of outsiders in, or choose 2 or 3 of the more fancied horses. But going back to we talked about looking at things like draw and pace, I think the way that you can play the exacta is you can kind of group horses together. So if you've got a feeling that this race is going to suit, there's going to be a pace burnout and this is going to suit horses coming from behind, then you can group together horses that you think are going to be closers, maybe throw in one that you think might last out. Same with the draw. If you're looking at a race, you think actually, it's rained quite a bit, I think high numbers are going to make have an advantage here. You can play, 5 horses that are all drawn in the highest third of the field. So, I think that's the way that I would tend to look at playing an exotic bet.
I like that idea very much, and I think that's a smart way of thinking about the world. One more I have for you. I think a lot of people are going to be unfamiliar with one of the bets you mentioned, the swinger, known as the Omni in some circles. Let folks know how that works.
Yeah, so with the swinger, you're looking to find you're picking 2 horses and you get a return depending on whether they're first and second, first and third, or second and third. So you're looking to fill 2 of the 3 slots. First 3 slots home. Personally, I prefer the approach of playing the exacta Quinella. They would be more the kind of bet I would go for. Simply because as a consequence, there's more opportunities to win. That means ultimately lower dividends. So it's each their own, and it depends on potentially maybe you'd look at a swinger bet if you really fancy a horse that's a bigger price. Because that's the kind of thing that's going to skew the odds in your favour. If that horse finishes, in third spot, and you've put that in with something like Palace Pier, a good example in the Queen Anne, maybe, rather than the exacta of Palace Pier and a horse like Lord Glitters, you'd put in, Palace Pier and Lord Glitters in a swinger potentially. But there are much cleverer punters than me who know how to play that bet.
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about it. I've used it as essentially a saver when you have big prices off of one of the other pools, but I've never really thought about how to use it on its own. Matthew, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on. Tons of great information over at atheraces.com, including a whole bunch of tipping information. Give us just a very one-sentence overview of the kind of content in terms of the written work that we can expect to find on the site this week.
Oh gosh, I mean, look, we try and cover the meeting, as very best we can. It's mainly looking at previewing racing, so it's trying to give you tips and analysis beforehand. So that means we have writers like Kevin Blake and Simon Rowlands, and Paul Jones. They're you'll find them all over the site. We have great tipster in Hugh Taylor as well. Some great insight from a new writer called James Flaherty on a piece that he's done. On angles at Royal Ascot, stable tours. We've done Wesley Ward, Aidan O'Brien, Mark Johnson, to name just three. So yeah, we try and cover it the best we can. And Peter, I'll make sure that I give your regards to the mixologists in the Royal Enclosure this year.
Hopefully those Italian guys from Rimini will be back.
Yeah.
They make some great drinks. And if you see a photo of them pouring champagne directly down my throat, it's a fake.
Yeah, it's Photoshopped.
Matthew, thank you so much, my friend. AtTheRaces.com. Just watch out for the guy who does the American stuff. I'm not too sure about him, but the rest of them, they're pretty rock solid. Matthew, thanks so much.
Great, Peter. Thank you.
Next up on the show, very happy to welcome back to the In the Money airwaves, a man who I think I've been talking to at least on the internet for 15 years or so. I think we probably met in real life about 5 years ago. One of my absolute favorite pundits when it comes to horse racing. You can read his work over at AtTheRaces.com, and you'll probably see him on your television set on Saturday when we'll be picking up the ITV coverage over on NBC. He is Kevin Blake. Kevin, how are things?
Hey, Pete. Yeah, all good. All good. Getting ready for one of my favorite weeks of the year. It's a bit sloggy from a work point of view, but the racing's fabulous, and I can't wait to get stuck in.
You'll be able to be there in person, or you'll be covering from afar?
No, I'll be sitting in my big green chair here for the week. Unfortunately, in Golden, County Tipperary, I'll be zooming on to ITV for the week. Would have loved to have been there. We're all in the same boat. We've been absolutely starved of racing, for the last better part of 18 months now. So I was hoping I might be able to get over and enjoy it, but the wait goes on a little bit longer. But what can we do? Only do what we're told, and be patient.
The Pims and champagne are going to taste all the better next year.
Oh yes, and I look forward to seeing you again there, Pete. You make mention. I think you're right. It was 5 years ago. We had a memorable, long, leisurely morning on the beautiful grass at Ascot there, myself, yourself, and the great Matt Taylor, who I know you'll be talking to later, and who is now my good wife Deirdre was there as well. So
that's right.
That was quite memorable. So we'll hopefully get to repeat it in the not too distant future.
Let's talk about some tips. The American audience, they've been warming to Ascot. Obviously, the coverage here the last few years has been much more than it's ever been before. We're going to have a bunch of tipping pieces here on the network, but you're honestly one of my go-tos when it comes to this stuff. Obviously, we can read you over at AtTheRaces.com, but I also want to know, especially for these first 2 days where we have declarations as of this writing, a couple of areas that you're particularly interested in getting involved in. Why don't we start with the obvious on opening day this Tuesday?
Where do you want to start? That's the great thing about Ascot, Royal Ascot. There's a great variety of races there. You have the tip-top stuff, the Group 1s, the 2-year-old races, which are fabulous. But you have, these just amazingly competitive handicaps with all sorts of variables, draw, pace, some of them around a bend, some of them on a straight track. There's so much to get stuck into. And I like a bit of all of it, Pete. I enjoy having a good crack at the handicaps, but the good stuff is there to be swung at too. I'm sure, look, the Queen Anne is the best starting point because it is the first race. And look, sure, Palace Pier, I know, Pete, would be a big banker, if you will. It'll be a big focus point for a lot of people in terms of one of the stars of the meeting. But, I'm quite worried about him. He's well cleared his field on figures. He should go and win. But I just think he might have a little piece or two of adversity to overcome. And this will be the firmest ground he's raced on since his debut. He's never raced on ground this firm at the highest level. He seems to handle the ground with a cut in it quite well. But probably even more concerning, he misses the kick habitually, Pete, like by a few lengths. He's drawn at the widest gate here. He's probably going to miss the kick, and there's no pace in this race. I suspect the pace is going to be steady. And when we get to halfway, Frankie is going to find himself in a poor spot positionally as this race goes. And look, Palace Pier may well be good enough to overcome it. but it's not really the type of things you want to be hearing with a horse that's trading, 4-9, 2-5. It's concerning for me. And Order of Australia, a horse you guys got to see, upsetting the odds in the Breeders' Cup Mile last year. I think he's a solid alternative. He'll be up there with the pace. They're training him as a miler this season, having not really known what his best trip was last season. I think he could benefit from that. Ground will suit him really well. And yeah, as an alternative to a short price fav, I think Order of Australia will give you a big run for your money, hopefully.
Anything else on opening day you're particularly excited about? I wouldn't mind at all if it's in one of the handicaps. They're races that I feel like at the top-notch stuff, most racing fans around the world can look in and end up having a view. The handicaps can be a little inscrutable to the American eye.
Yeah, for sure. But look, these are big races in their own right, Pete. You know what Royal Ascot is like. Everyone, especially in Ireland and England, want to have a winner at this meeting. And, truth be told, the top Group 1s aren't accessible to everyone. You need a very special horse to go and compete in one of those. So the handicaps are much more targetable. And I know, I suppose it's not a big secret. I do a lot of work with Joseph O'Brien, and, we've been talking about handicaps at Royal Ascot since February, March.
That's amazing.
You got to be thinking about these races because they're extremely hard to win, and you need to give yourself every chance, and get your horse in there on the right mark if you can at all. But you go back and look at the results of some of these handicaps going back over the years. Having a fair bit in hand isn't always enough. You need a fair bit in hand, and you need the race to go right for you tactically. And I'll give you one that in the last that I've had in mind. It's nothing to do with Joseph, but it's one that I've had in mind for Royal Ascot since almost last year, because he's a horse called Global Storm, running in the last race on the first day, the Copper Horse Stakes. And the reason I've had him in mind is I really fancied him at the meeting last year. He ran in the Golden Gates handicap over 10 furlongs. I thought he had a fabulous chance. He ran very well to finish third, but it was just a little bit sharp for him. He only really started to roll inside the final furlong, and I've been waiting for him to go up and trip ever since. He now steps up to a mile 6 for this race, the Copper Horse Handicap. He stepped up to that trip for the first time last time, and I thought he won quite cozily at Newmarket. It was an inspired choice because he was on the borderline in terms of mark to get into this race. They took a chance, ran him again. He went up £4 for winning, and it turns out he needed those £4 to get in. So they've got it right so far. I just think Ascot, 1 mile 6 furlongs, strong pace in front of him. It's what this horse really wants, and I think there's still untapped potential. Look, he's not a gigantic price or anything. He's about the second favourite in at about 4-1, 9-2. But this is what we call, Pete, a long-term project, and I'm hoping he'll deliver the right result for his supporters. And tomorrow, getting up my days all jumbled up. They've all melted into one. Pete, it's been a busy few days.
I'm glad you mentioned one late in the day. There'll be a lot of people listening to this early in the day on Tuesday, probably while watching Ascot. It's good to have one. If they miss your idea on Order of Australia, they can get in for the last race. Let's talk about Wednesday. We've got the full decks for Wednesday. I would imagine you're fairly well studied up. Is there a horse or two on Wednesday to take a look at?
Yeah, I've just actually fired off my selections for day 2 there to be published on the Betfair website. And to be honest, I didn't think it was the most appealing day. It'll probably turn out to be the weakest of the 5 days, in my mind, at least from a betting point of view. But one filly that I like in the opening race, the Queen Mary Stakes, I know a lot of your viewers and listeners will be paying attention, of course, to Wes Ward's representative, Twilight Gleaming. And from what I've seen of her, she looks very good, and I'm sure she'll make a bold bid, most likely on the front end. But there's a Newmarket-based filly that I think might be able to put up a bit of a go for the home defence. Desert Dreamer. She's trained by Stuart Williams, who wouldn't really be known for bang 2-year-olds, but she's looked very fast in her 2 starts, Pete. She's won twice at Newmarket, over 5 and over 6. And if you watch her races, like, they've never been going nearly fast enough for her. She's travelled extremely strongly, and she's been locked up in traffic on both occasions. And when racing room has become available to her, she's quickened up quite impressively to me. She was particularly good on the clock when making a winning debut, and she didn't do a whole lot wrong the last time. And I just think a race like this, Pete, where they go lickety split from the get-go over 5 furlongs at Ascot, it's going to be much more comfortable for her. And hopefully she'll be able to carry that turn of foot up the stiff finish at Ascot. And she might just surprise a few people. She's a double figure price, kind of 14-1, potentially 16-1 tomorrow. And she's one I've had my eye on for this race for a little while now.
Sounds like, if nothing else, a good exacta partner for Twilight Gleaming for USA players who are looking to figure out, who like her and want to figure out who's going to run with her. How about later in the week? Now, this is trickier, obviously, as we don't have final decks yet for the last 3 days at Ascot. But is there something on Thursday or any of the last 3 days you've either backed already or excited about backing as we get near?
Yeah, I'm finding myself waiting in the main, Pete. Look, the Group 1s, we know, have a good idea of their shape. The handicaps are just tricky without the draw, in particular. And plenty of these races, a lot of horses are double entered. So there'll still be a great amount of question marks over what's going to get in, where the cutoff points are. So to use an Irish expression, I tend to hold my wished or keep my mouth shut until we get to see the final decks. And the draw, because it's absolutely crucial in races that are so competitive. You really do need to know the draw and the pace situation, I think, before having a bullish opinion. But look, in terms of the Group 1s, one of the big races of the week is going to be the Gold Cup, of course, on Thursday. Stradivarius bidding for history, looking for 4 wins in the race. It's sensational. I was lucky enough to see one in Yates to do it, not a million years ago. Wasn't so sure I'd ever see one do it again, but Stradivarius is here on the cusp of it. And generally, Pete, I've tried to take this horse on the Gold Cup, and generally he's made me look like a bit of an idiot because he is extremely well equipped for this race. He's a stayer with a turn of foot. He can get himself out of trouble, and he's just a very tough horse to beat in it. He's 7 years of age. He's a real man, as we've seen in recent starts last season. He was getting pretty colty beforehand, but it wasn't stopping him. John and of course now John and Thady Gosden, his son, are doing a very good job with him. He looked very good to me on his reappearance at Ascot. He's got a better preparation for the race this year than last year, and he looks to have a fabulous chance of making history. But from a betting point of view, Pete, I'm going to have to take him on with something again. I'll let him go win and I'll cheer him in if he goes and wins. But there's one there that's probably slipping under the radar a little bit, is Emperor of the Sun, trained by Donnacha O'Brien. He's by Galileo. He's a half-brother to Zooster. International racing fans will be very familiar with him, an Australian horse that's really making waves as a sire and has been shuttling over to the UK in recent years. We look forward to his first runners. But Emperor of the Sun, he's been a bit of a slow burn. He's been gradually progressing rather than taking giant steps forward, but he's looked better than ever overstaying trips this season. He gave a pretty good hiding to Search for a Song, a 2-time Irish St. Ledger winner, and Twilight Payne with the Melbourne Cup winner in the Savile Beg at Leopardstown last time. He's a real good moving horse that'll rattle off the ground. I should raise the warning. Anyone looking ahead to later in the week, Pete, we have a risk of thunder. There's a risk of thunderstorms on Wednesday night coming into Thursday. And we all know the nature of thunderstorms. They can be localized, but there's fears that there could be as much as an inch of rain coming Wednesday into Thursday. So that's another reason to maybe hold fire with the bets until we see what happens. This guy wouldn't want too much rain. I think he rattles off fast ground. He's run very well on soft. He's probably better equipped than some if it does go downhill in terms of ground conditions. But he's definitely one that I still think is flying a bit under the radar. I think the closer we get and people look at that latest run and they'll see the form and see the strength of it, he might well shorten up a bit. But he'd be my alternative to Stradivarius if you didn't want to take the short price. He's likely to be odds on. Odds on isn't for everyone, Pete.
Yeah, no, I get it. We tip plenty of odds on horses on this network, but I totally hear you. And it's also one of those things where if you haven't been on the bandwagon yet, why would you get on it now? I mean, right? Yeah,
I'll give you another Irish saying, Pete. If you haven't been to the wedding, don't go to the funeral.
We use that one too in horse racing over here.
There we go.
That's a good one. I didn't realize we'd nicked it from the Irish, but it makes sense.
Well, I might have mistakenly claimed it, but we'll always claim these things.
Well, for folks wanting more from Kevin in terms of tips, and everybody should, attheraces.com is the place to go. You'll be able to see his write-ups every day. I'm not going to hold his feet to the fire on races that haven't drawn yet, but I will ask one general question before I let you get out of here. You talked about paying attention to the draw. Is there a particular draw bias that you're looking for in particular types of races? Or is it like with track biases here in the States where you really just have to pay attention and see how the track is playing and see which side, if any, is favored before you make any decisions as far as that goes?
Well, look, we see a lot of races on the straight track at Royal Ascot, Pete, and like people will talk and search and try and find apparent track biases, but really at Ascot, for me, in the main, it's about pace. You're looking for the pace, and you want to be drawn close to the majority of the pace in the race. That'll give you the best chance. I think as long as you're chasing in the area of the track where there's the most pace, you're probably in good shape regardless of where that place is. And the round track can be a different story. And there's one I'll mention. It's not applicable to a whole heap of races, but it is applicable to a few of the handicaps and the Duke of Edinburgh and the King George V. Those races are run over 1.5 miles on the round track. Conventional wisdom would, of course, suggest to you that low draws are the place to be in such a situation. Don't ask me to explain why, but statistically, Pete, for a long, long time now, high draws are very much favoured and low draws are at a significant disadvantage in those races. I'm not quite sure why. There's a few theories that do the rounds, but we don't necessarily need to know why. We just need to pay attention to the facts, and that's very much what the facts suggest. So if you're drawn especially low in those races, it can be very, very tricky. We had an exception to the rule last year. It was Hookham winning the King George V handicap from stall 4, I think. But Pete, within 2 starts later, he was 24 pounds higher in the handicap. So when you're 2 stone in hand, you can overcome a bit of adversity. So unless you think you have 2 stone in hand, the low draw can be a pretty big negative in those particular races.
Great stuff, Kevin. Thank you so much for the knowledge you bring and your sense of humor and just general good vibes. Fantastic to have you here. Look forward to watching you on TV this week. And Godspeed, my friend. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Pete, and apologies for my tatty appearance. I was actually out. I had some painters out in the yard earlier on, and I was out doing some touch-ups just before you called. So apologies.
No rest for you. Hey, I've got my Santurce T-shirt and the bunker cap on, so you fit right in, my friend.
Yeah, I tell you what, I've been staring at a computer screen all day, Pete. I needed to get outside and get a bit of sunshine before I went absolutely cracked.
Cheers, Kevin. We'll be talking soon.
Thanks, Pete. Best of luck for the week, and best of luck to all your viewers and listeners as well.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. I would like to thank Nick Luck, Kevin Blake, and Matthew Taylor for their time today. I want to thank producer Craig for all his help in stitching this show together as well. We'll thank our founding partners on the network, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. You can get our new whiskey right now. trfinc.org/players is the place to go to check that out. Also, our friends at 10 Strike Racing. We always love to root for the purple and black around here. Most of all, though, want to thank all of you, the listeners and viewers, for making these shows so much fun to do. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, you should. More and more content up there. If you go to YouTube and search for In the Money Media, you can find that. This has been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.